Hello everyone, Johnny Hurricane here from GamersHeroes.com, and today we are going to be talking about just why they recently started planning for the Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Let's get started. Alright, first off, obviously I'm outside. You can see my lovely lake back there, the lake I live on, obviously not my lake. You'll hear the birds, a little bit of ambient noise. There's some wind, so my hair is going to be flopping around, all that business. It's a nice day, and they have been few and far between here in Michigan, so figured I'd come out in the sun, which obviously I need, so here I am. Anyways, let's get into the topic at hand. That bird's real close. So today, actually, Destructoid put up a piece about how Final Fantasy VII Remake has just Part 2, mind you, just started the planning phase. I will link the article down below so you can look at that if you want, because I don't know why they wouldn't have planned beforehand, but there's a few good tidbits in there that makes me question what Part 2 is actually going to end up looking like. So obviously the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm not going into super huge spoilers, but you do get out of Midgar, which if you played the original, I know it's not one for one, but you leave Midgar and you go into this open world area. First and foremost, I ask about this kind of open world, overworld map type of deal, which Final Fantasy has been very, very resistant to doing. Final Fantasy 15 did it, but 13 did not, until the end anyways. So the question was, will there be an overworld? And the answer was, we're not entirely sure yet. What? How are you not entirely sure yet? What do you mean? That's a kind of a big part of the second part, right? Is that we were leaving Midgar going into this much wider area where we get to go find the Chocobo farm and the marshes, cool stuff like that. But you're not sure if it's going to be open world. I use the term open world, you know what I mean. Like you're going on the map overworld and you're moving around. I'm worried it's going to be kind of like little condensed areas that you just kind of jump from one point to the other, kind of similar to Midgar. If it is that case, it will at least end up coming out a little earlier in theory. But since I just started planning and development for it recently, I don't know. I had hoped it would come out a reasonable time, in my opinion, for a game development crunch, QA, all that business, especially considering they have the engine. They have Cloud's fighting style. They have Barrett's, Aerith's, Tifa's fighting style. They technically have Red's fighting style. I know you can't play them, so that has to be fixed a little bit. The engine's there. There's got to be some adjustments for that because you know it's coming to PS5, but a reasonable amount of time would be 2 to 3 years, right? Assuming that you were doing a relatively large open world area, we would expect that because you have most of the base stuff down. As I said, the engine will need to be upgraded. We've all seen the apartment door, right? The doors in the game in general, they're a hot mess even on the PS4 Pro. Don't know what the hell they were thinking with the textures there, but that's how it went. So there are going to be some upgrades that need to happen. Still, 2 to 3 years when you got everything down sounded reasonable. Now, while I'm still thinking it is going to be 2 to 3 years, I think it's going to be what we originally thought would be a 3-part, because there's 3 discs in the original Final Fantasy VII, 3-part game. I'm beginning to wonder if it'll be more like 5. Because they do mention in the article that it is they were enjoying the smaller scale, the 30 to 40 hour scale. If that's the case, we're not going to end up seeing the end of this probably until not PS5's end, but when the PS6 and Xbox Series X too. I don't know, the next generation is going to be weird, so whatever. The next generation consoles are coming out. So why is it taking so long? Why did they not immediately get on this, right? There are things you need to think about when you're developing the first game that needs to lead into the second game. Why has this not already been figured out, right? For instance, at the end of the game, you have super high level magic. I'm talking like Blizzaga, Thundara, max level cure, haste, the death spell, things like that. You've got, and just tons of summons. So, and I don't know what the level cap is. Maybe it's 50, maybe it's 100. I didn't reach it, but are we just going into part 2 max level with all our materia? What are we doing here? This is stuff that should have been figured out before you finish the first game, because now you're in a kind of a spot where what I assume will happen is you're going to be nerfed, right? You're going to be dropped down to probably level 30, because I would imagine that's probably right around the level we'd end up finishing at. I don't remember the exact level, but we're gonna take a nerf most likely, or we'll be max level 50, and they'll somehow explain why we can't have max level fire materia anymore. Or It'll be sort of similar, from what I recall. I have not played Final Fantasy VII Remake, or not Remake, the original Final Fantasy VII in a long time. I believe it was actually Fire 1, Fire 2, and Fire 3. So maybe it'll be Fire Ra 2 instead. They could do it that way. But again, this is not things that you should be, these are things you should have already had figured out. So I'm just baffled at this decision, right? Because you look at a game like Jedi Fallen Order. The second part of the second game was greenlit before they even shipped out the first game. So they already knew what they were doing in the second game. Now for Final Fantasy VII, it kind of looks like, well, they knew how they're going to start it, but they don't know how they're going to end it. I think they're really worried about certain, I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but there's certain things that are going to happen, supposed to happen. And I think they know that they might need to do some pivoting, depending on kind of how Mass Effect 3's ending was, depending on what we see. I don't think they should. I think they should just stick to your guns and do what you tell the story you wanted to tell. But this is a different culture over there, and they're probably a little scared of the outcry. So now I'm beginning to wonder if we were going to get to those spots in the second version, or if we're gonna have to wait till a third version. The article said it was like a roller coaster ride, and it was, right? We're at the top. We were at the top with Final Fantasy VII Remake. We finally got it, and now we just got this super plummet where like your stomach acid and all your food and everything just like, oh, like it's coming up, you know what I mean? And this is where we're at, because they should have already had a lot of this stuff nailed down. They should have been able to be like, all right, we're taking our break, 3-month break, however long of a break you get after a massive successful release, and then you just jump right back in and start making what little adjustments you have to make to the engine, and maybe a few adjustments to the combat and stuff, because you already had this figured out. And then you just start grinding away at the open world, the overworld, and it's chipping away at the story. But now we're in, I don't know, we're in freaking Star Wars territory where they're just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. I feel like it's not a good look. It should have already been done. I mean, at least, here's the thing. When you're creating a campaign in Dungeons & Dragons, yes, I'm about to nerd out, you have a start, you have a middle, and you have a finish. What it feels like is they just had a start. And now they're not sure where they want to go with it, and they definitely don't have a finish. That's what I'm reading from it anyways. Either way, you can expect 2 to 3 year wait minimum, probably more, because Square loves to delay their games. Look at Avengers. Final Fantasy 15 got delayed a ton. Kingdom Hearts 3 took fucking 12 years to come out, and more is on that too, so it's a big old mess. I think I got a couple more things here. See, I started writing them down instead of trying to remember them, so. Shorter games, no world map. Oh! All right, yep, good thing I did this. So, in 2017, I remember because I was playing Breath of the Wild and I was listening to a podcast. And the podcast had started talking about how Final Fantasy VII, Square specifically, had brought in Final Fantasy VII Remake back into their house because they were working with CyberConnect or something. They were working with someone else and they were doing all the development, and they were like, we're not satisfied with what they're doing. This was 2017, which was 2 years after the reveal, I believe, 2 or 3 years, I don't remember. And they brought it in-house, and then they had additional 2 years to work on it. So what I'm trying to get at is, it's very bizarre that you would bring it in and not have a very clear vision and not have stuff ready. Like, you shouldn't be, like I said, you should not be in the stage of thinking like, okay, what do we do with this? What do we do with this? Well, you should have everything planned out beforehand, because you knew how the game ended. You made the fucking game. You knew what would be having. Most likely, most of us would have super high level magics and summons and stuff like that. And you should know where the next part of the story goes. At the very least, you should already have this. But the wording from the article from these developers and the combat guy and everything is just like, we're not really sure yet. And it's like, what? So there is one thing that could possibly happen, in that we see a Final Fantasy 16 in between 7 Remake 1 and Remake 2. I don't know, we've not really heard anything on 16. They do have a lot of development teams, but they are spread out amongst various projects right now. I don't know, so what do you guys think? What do you think you're gonna see the next Final Fantasy it won't be called Remake, it'll be called like Reborn or whatever, I don't know. They'll figure something out with part 2. Like I said, I'm thinking like 3 years minimum. And if you think of anything else that they need to adjust, that maybe I'm overlooking, maybe this is something that they actually had to do that I'm just freaking out over nothing, but really a lot of this seems like it should have been handled by now. So anyways, that'll do it for me. Just figured I'd let you guys know and get this, look at the lovely lake there. that, yeah, you're either A, waiting 5 years for a actual large chunk of Final Fantasy Part 2, or you're getting a small chunk in 3 years, most likely. That, or it'll be a small chunk in 5 years, because Square takes forever to develop things. You never really know. So anyways, liked what you saw, got what you needed. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys in the next video. Later, Gators.